should remain standing, we'll ask Councillor Nussbaum to introduce our special guest who is here to sing the national anthem, perhaps with the new words for the first time, thanks to the late Honourable Maurice Boulanger's private member's bill. So, Councillor Nussbaum. Please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And it is absolutely your correct, perfect timing that today is Rita Rockliff's turn to organize the singing of the national anthem as a ward that lies within the federal riding of Ottawa-Vanier. And as the Mayor mentioned, just 1 week ago today, on Wednesday, February the 7th, Bill C-210 received royal assent, making a statutory change towards gender-neutral lyrics from "In all thy sons command" to "In all of us command" in the English version. And as you all know, this change was driven by one person in particular, a change that can truly be considered a big part of his legacy. A champion for the Franco-Ontarians' right. He had a fantastic community spirit. Maurice Bélanger was a very well-loved MP in Ottawa-Vanier. Maurice was committed beyond his determination to having this law amended. Former riding will be able to present this refreshed gender-neutral version of our national anthem today for the first time here at Ottawa City Council. I'm very happy to introduce Sonia Sweeney, a mezzo-soprano and Rita Rockliff resident who came to us highly recommended through an active arts and culture network in our ward. Sonia is a graduate of the University of Ottawa. She is a professional vocalist and pianist who has been praised for her sensitivity and technique. She has performed not only in Ottawa, but all over Canada in different roles ranging from Mozart's Coronation Mass to Haydn's La Cantarina. Sonia's passion is sharing the joy of music through performance and passing on her knowledge to other aspiring musicians. She is an active educator and teaches students in voice, piano, and theory. Now over to you, Sonia. Thank you.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command, car ton bras c'est pour des pays, et c'est porter la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée et dîner dans l'espoir. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Well, that was beautifully done. Thank you very much, Sonia. Merci beaucoup, Sonia. It's now my pleasure to invite Catherine Kelly to the podium for this Council's Mayor City Builder Award presentation. J'invite maintenant Catherine Kelly à monter sur le podium avec son conseiller municipal pour le quartier capital, David Chernyshenko. Welcome, and we have some friends and family here. Thank you for joining us. Catherine is a journalist, writer, activist, and the embodiment of a community leader and a city builder. As the Vice President of Internal Affairs at CUSA, the Carleton University Students Association, Catherine makes decisions about the internal operations of the association, including CUSA Council and the main office. She is responsible for all issues related to clubs and societies and worked hard to support all 300 clubs on campus while ensuring the Student Council runs transparently. As a journalism major, one of her major priorities this year has been improving CUSA's communication strategy, making it easier for students to access services and engage within their students' association. As a feminist, she has leveraged her position to support survivors of sexual violence and to prevent sexual assault on and off campus. Thanks to her initiative, Catherine's policy work will result in the training of over 1,000 students in peer-to-peer support and sexual violence prevention. This training aims to create an informative conversation amongst other student leaders about consent. Catherine's initiative will be modeled in schools across the country in an effort to build a nationwide progressive movement. This will position Carleton University as a national university leader in the prevention of sexual violence. Catherine endeavors to help others achieve success, and she's created a fund for clubs that collaborate on events. Her vision is to encourage clubs to network outside of their social circles and to collaborate with each other in order to host more successful events. Catherine also founded a philanthropy fund for on-campus groups and individuals who want to do philanthropy work but have no fundraising resources. She is working to make it mandatory for all on-campus clubs to have an equity officer, a role that will promote diversity and equality within their organizations. In addition to her political platform, Catherine is also an experienced and accomplished journalist and editor. She is inspired to write stories that build community and promote the good that happens right here in Ottawa. Adding to her experience as an editor of a website that celebrates and promotes activities in Ottawa, Catherine joined Centertown News as a journalist and advertising manager. Her articles with Centertown have focused on entrepreneurs who are creating positive social change in Ottawa, such as the Ottawa Tool Library and new grocery store, Ottawa's first zero-waste grocery store. Her goal is to once again celebrate community leaders and promote Ottawa's unique culture. Catherine truly cares about her campus and her city and continues to use her talents to improve both. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Catherine for her many contributions to not just the university, but the entire city of Ottawa. J'aimerais cesser cette occasion contribution à l'université et à toute la communauté de la ville d'Ottawa. It's my pleasure on behalf of all members of council and in particular your councillor David Chernyshenko to present you with the Mayor's City Builder Award. Congratulations. Come in the middle here. Tilt that back a little bit.
I really like to take the time today to thank everyone who helped me along this journey. I'd also like to take the time, because I don't know when else I will have the attention of an entire city council as well as the mayor, to perhaps propose an idea. I don't know when the last time you were on the City of Ottawa website, but it's actually much easier to file a complaint than it is to submit an idea. Alfred Nobel once said, "If I have 1,000 ideas and only one be good, I am satisfied." And I hope that by the end of today, or perhaps this week, or perhaps next month, regardless of the timeline, that I may propose that we have a submit an idea page front and center of the City of Ottawa website. Because I'm sure people have complaints, but they also have solutions too for their problems. And if I have one solution, one idea that may spawn 1,000 more, maybe it'd be this one. Thank you.
Roll call, please, Madam Deputy Clerk.
Conseiller Manette.
Present.
Councillor Middick. Councillor Harder.
Here.
Councillor Wilkinson. Present. Councillor El Shantiri.
Present.
Councillor Kadri.
Present.
Councillor Taylor.
Here.
Councillor Shirelli.
Here.
Councillor Eglai.
Here.
Councillor Deans.
Here.
Councillor Tierney.
Present.
Conseiller Fleury.
Si.
Councillor Nussbaum.
Present.
Councillor McKenney.
Present.
Councillor Leeper.
Ici.
Councillor Brockington.
Here.
Councillor Chernyshenko.
Present.
Conseiller Cloutier.
Present.
Conseiller Blais. Councillor Derouse.
Here.
Councillor Moffat.
Here.
Councillor Kakish.
Just be ready for the mayor to make
Councillor
a
Hubley.
quip about you, that you're inviting
Mayor Watson.
to hear it.
Ici.
Le quorum est tient, Monsieur le Maire.
Merci.
You have quorum.
De procès verbaux for the 31st of January 2018, le 31 janvier 2018. Carried. Declaration of interest, including those arising from prior meetings. Déclaration de conflit d'intérêt. Councillor Chernyshenko, please.
I, Councillor David Charnushenko, declare a potential indirect pecuniary interest on City Council Agenda 64, Item 8, Twin Elm Rugby Park, as I am a member of the Ottawa Renewable Energy Cooperative, Inc., an entity that may benefit financially from the installation of solar panels at this location as described in this report.
Thank you. Councillor Shirelli, please.
I, Councillor Rick Shirelli, declare a potential deemed indirect pecuniary interest on City Council Agenda Item 64 motions, of which notice has been previously given. Motion pertaining to Salvation Army Development application for 325, 327, and 333 Montreal Road and 334 Montfort Street and 273 St. Anne Avenue with respect to the permitted number of beds on the shelter. As my daughter is employed by the Shepherds of Good Hope, an organization that is within the same funding bracket as the Salvation Army, and could see its operations affected by the changes associated with this application and motion should they proceed.
Okay, any other conflicts of interest to declare? Communications as presented. Regrets, Councillor Middick is advised that he will be absent from this meeting. Motion to introduce reports. Motion portant présentation d'un rapport. Conseiller Blais, s'il vous plaît.
That item 1 of Planning Committee Report 57, the report from the Ottawa Community Housing Corporation entitled Ottawa Community Housing Corporation Confirmation of Re-election of Chair, Appointment of Directors, Repeal of Bylaw Number 10, and Approval of Bylaw 11. The report from the Ottawa Police Services Board entitled Board Activity, Training and Performance 2017 Annual Report, Agricultural and Rural Affairs Committee Report 31, Finance and Economic Development Committee Report 31, Planning Committee Report 57A, and the report from the City Clerk and Solicitor's Office entitled Summary of Oral and Written Public Submissions for Items Subject to the Planning Act Explanation Requirements at the City Council meeting of January 31, 2018 be received and considered.
Carried. Postponements and deferrals. Report number 57 of the Planning Committee, rapport numéro 57 de rapport du Comité de l'Urbanisme. I believe Councillor Harder has a motion signed by Councillor Tierney. Councillor Harder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and yes, I do. And first of all, I want to say that if you recall at the last meeting of Council, Councillor Leeper asked that we defer this item for another chat, if you will, with the NCC, and thank you, Mayor, for arranging that so quickly and for the meeting that subsequently held with yourself and Councillor Leeper and myself. And if you remember, those of you on planning, the people in the community in particular were concerned about the view, if you will, from Richmond Road and the small width of it, and at that time it was about 15 meters. So part of our discussion was, and then there was also concern from people on Fraser with regard to the proximity to the possible build and that. So we had those things in mind, and I want to thank the NCC for coming so quickly to meet with us. So we started the conversation with perhaps having a change in the height in order to accommodate a greater width. And then we talked about the width itself, and we left the meeting with a pretty good concept, but it's even been made better since then with our staff working with the staff at the NCC, and they've come back with something that is going to give upwards to 19 meters instead of the 15 meters. It's going to provide minimum setbacks, which are a benefit to the people on Fraser. And I would say with the building that they've added one story to, with the setback off of Richmond Road, I think that is good. I think it's about 5 meters there. But I look at the fact that this Rochester Fields is going to be saved 80% of it as parkland. And I can tell you that on Monday I met with, I happened to run into the Director of Planning for the NCC, and she said, we're so excited. This is going to be the best park in all of Ottawa, Jan. And I said, she said, well, maybe not the best one, but one of the best ones. So they're very, very excited, and Councillor Leeper's community is going to have years to be engaged with it. We really want to thank you and the NCC for giving us the chance to do this better, and the motion before you, I think, speaks to that.
Appreciate your work on this file as well. Councillor Leeper, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I would just like to echo Councillor Harder's thanks to you and particularly to Dr. Christensen at the NCC for agreeing to take a second look at the proposal. It is not everything that the community is seeking, but I will be supporting today's motion. We'll be taking advantage of the opportunities for consultation to come if and when there is an actual development proposal to seek further improvements to the plan, but in recognition of the significant work that was done to provide a better proposal today than we had before us 2 weeks ago, I will be supporting this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Appreciate your participation at that meeting as well, and thanks to Councillor Harder and Tierney for the motion. On the motion as presented? Carried. On the report as amended? Carried. Reports, Ottawa Community Housing Corporation, Société de Logement Communautaire d'Ottawa. Congratulations, Councillor Fleury. A tough re-election battle. On the report recommendations, carried. Ottawa Police Services Board, Commission de Services Policiers d'Ottawa, Board Activity Training and Performance 2017 Annual Report, Rapport Annuel 2017, received. Committee reports, Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee Report number 31, rapport numéro 31 du Comité de l'Agriculture et des Affaires Rurales, Zoning Bylaw Amendment, modification règlement de zonage 2403 Huntley Road, 2403 Huntley Road. Carried. Zoning Bylaw Amendment 5130 and 5208 Ramseyville Road, modification règlement de zonage 513E et 5208 Chemin Ramseyville.
A quick question, Mr. Mayor.
Quick question by Councillor.
It's very short. It's just how do we ensure, I'm supportive of the report, I'm just want to make sure that we do the appropriate steps so that whoever goes into those facilities is properly licensed, and how do we ensure that they maintain the license as a provider? How are the steps working out for those requirements?
So, Mr. Mayor, I can give a quick response and we can follow up with the councillor in writing afterwards, but they wouldn't be entitled to operate without a federal license. They would be in violation of federal law if they didn't have a license. So for the purposes of municipal zoning, we'll verify exactly how we link, but they could not open their doors without a federal license.
Okay, on the report, carried. Finance and Economic Development Committee Report number 31, rapport numéro 31 du Comité des finances et de développement économique, Britannia Village, Ottawa River Flood Protection, setting of the special service charge. And Councillor Taylor had a meeting, I believe, that went well this week to deal with this issue, and you have a comment, I believe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just a brief comment and then a technical amending motion. The comment, for those of you who were in attendance at FEDCO, understand that we did a bit of an aside meeting with the Britannia Village Community Association and the affected homeowners between FEDCO and this meeting. Went very well, and we had an opportunity to answer any kind of last-minute questions that some of the residents had. Thankful to the staff who came out from planning, from infrastructure, from finance, and our colleagues at the RBCA to help answer those questions. I did want to bring Council's attention to the memo that was sent by the president of the Britannia Village Community Association, kind of outlining their understanding of how that landed and withdrawing their request for a deferral on this issue. They sent it through to the clerk's office, who circulated it to members of council, so we want to make sure that that is noted. I also just want to thank all of the colleagues around the table here and the staff, and most importantly the residents who have had a hand in creating the berm project over the years. It dates back to the 1970s, discussion around floodworks, and certainly paid great dividends to the Britannia community last year during the spring flooding. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I have a brief technical amendment forwarded to us from legal. Seconded by Councillor El Shantiri. Whereas city staff have further reviewed the properties to be subject to the special levy for Britannia Village River Flood Protection Works, and whereas such a review has identified the need for modifications to document 3 to the report, and whereas the modifications are the removal of 211 Bradford and 197 Britannia and the addition of 0 Bradford and 235 Britannia, therefore be it resolved that the report be amended and the substitution of the attachment attached to this motion for document 3 in this report.
Okay, thank you. I know you've worked on this some time. I remember dealing with this when I was the MPP for that area, so this has been a long process, and I'm glad it's coming to a resolution. So the motion by Councillor Taylor and seconded by Councillor El Shantiri is technical amendment with some address changes. On the motion, carried. On the motion as amended, carried. Thank you. Item number 7 is additional infrastructure funding for the renewal of tax-supported assets, financement d'infrastructures supplémentaires. Carried. Item 8, Twin Elm Rugby Park, Parc de Rugby de Twin Elm. Councillor Chernyshenko has left the table. On the report as presented. Carried. Planning Committee Report number 57A, rapport numéro 57A du Comité de l'Urbanisme. Item 9, front-ending report, Stormwater Management Ponds 1 and 2, Leitrim Road South Drainage System, North-South Swale and Oversized Trunk Storm Sewers in Leitrim Community. Councillor Harder, seconded by Councillor Tierney, has a technical amendment, I believe adding one company. Councillor Harder, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there will be another party that will be front-ending the cost of this, and it, in addition to Urbandale Claridge Homes. So we're adding Claridge Homes to the motion.
Okay. On the amendment as presented by Councillor Harder and seconded by Councillor Tierney. Carried. On the report as amended. Carried. Does anyone wish to lift anything from the bulk consent agenda? No. On the bulk consent agenda as presented. Carried. Disposition of items approved by committees under delegated authority suite à donner des articles ratifiés par les comités en vertu de pouvoirs délégués. Received. Motion to adopt reports. Motion portant adoption de rapport. Councillor Blais, please.
That item 1 of Planning Committee Report 57, the report from Ottawa Community Housing Corporation entitled Ottawa Community Housing Corporation Confirmation of Re-election of Chair, Appointment of Directors, Repeal of Bylaw Number 10 and Approval of Bylaw Number 11, the report from Ottawa Police Services Board entitled Board Activity Training and Performance 2017 Annual Report, Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee Report 31, Finance and Economic Development Committee Report 31, Planning Committee Report 57A, and the report from the City Clerk and Solicitor's Office entitled Summary of Oral and Written Public Submissions for items subject to the Planning Act explanation requirements at the City Council meeting of January 31, 2018 be received and adopted as amended.
On the motion, carried. Motions of which a notice has been previously given. Motion dont avait été donnée entièrement. I have a motion seconded by Councillor Caudry. Over the last number of years, colleagues, there's been important dialogue between municipalities, communities, within families and service providers, as well as with upper levels of government, how best to coordinate efforts that will deal in a reduction, or lead to a reduction, rather, of overdose deaths in Ottawa. Over the last few years, we've heard how drug addiction is becoming an increasingly complex problem that requires a multi-layered strategy to combat. For example, in 2017, Ottawa experienced the largest number of opioid overdose-related emergency room visits to date, averaging approximately 30 a month. What has also become clear is that we will only see real change by working with our community partners on a nimble and responsive strategy that includes mental health promotion, prevention of drug use, as well as community withdrawal and treatment services for those who want and can benefit from them. I firmly believe we need a holistic approach to attack this crisis from a variety of angles and with many partners in order to reach people when they are in their journey. Nous devons attaquer le problème de plusieurs angles afin de rejoindre.
We have to fight this crisis from several angles.
In concert with city departments and local service providers, have formed an opioid overdose prevention and response task force. This task force focuses not only on surveillance and on prevention through working with schools, parents groups, and community-based agencies, but also works with people with lived experience to help promote treatment options within the community. This includes early support for parents raising young children, mental health and resources to promote resiliency, equipment and training for first responders and frontline service providers, community withdrawal and treatment options for those who seek them, harm reduction services for those who need them, safe and adequate housing for those who are struggling. I want to thank Councillor Caudry and the Board of Health for their leadership and capable handling of this complex file. Although our efforts to date have played an important role in reducing overdoses in our community, I believe that there is more that can and must be done to get our most vulnerable residents back on their feet. Même si nous avons fait du progrès, nous devons...
Even though we've made some progress, we must attempt to do more to help our most vulnerable residents.
Do more to offer addiction treatment options for residents who need them. That is why today Councillor Caudry and I are bringing forward a motion that I referenced in my State of the City address for Council's consideration. This motion seeks additional funding from the province for addiction treatment services in Ottawa. This funding could help increase the number of detox and treatment facilities in our region, particularly for youth and where there are gaps in current services. Ce financement additionnel pourrait jouer un rôle important.
This additional funding could play an important role to offer more treatment options in the area for our youth.
This motion so that by working together, we can better support the local healthcare service providers to counter the increase in opioid-related emergencies in Ottawa. So the motion, I won't read it, it's before you, Councillor Fleury.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Moi aussi,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also agree that this is a very important discussion to be had. We had it in public health, and I'd like to recognize the efforts of the group. I was wondering if we could maybe bring an amendment, a friendly amendment, to inform some of our colleagues, including Community Housing of Ottawa. Community Housing already has a relationship with the LIN, and that was put forward by my colleague, who's also the Director of Community Housing, Councillor McKenney. So I wonder if we could simply reflect what was done, just so that there's no duplication with the province. Oh, yes, I agree if you want. If you want to give a copy to the clerk explaining exactly what you want. I agree with that. It's a friendly amendment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had just a point of clarification. And thank you for the motion. But on the resolution where where you reference assisting people with lived experience in system navigation, I think Councillor Caudry can back me up here. In our last Board of Health meeting, we did hear from community health centers and from some of our residents who are actively using drugs that the peer-to-peer support is very important, especially in the ward that I represent, because a lot of folks are using in rooming houses, and we've had some very tragic deaths just in the last couple of months in rooming houses. So we did hear about a plea really for ongoing funding for that kind of peer support work. And I just want to get clarification that when you talk about assisting people with lived experience in system navigation, if that would be included in that.
Yes, that was the intention.
It would? Okay, thank you very much.
Taylor, please.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. And representing the Association of Municipalities of Ontario on the Minister's Opioid Emergency Task Force, I can tell you that there is no shortage of discussion around that table about this issue. And so certainly I'm absolutely in support of this motion. I want to take the opportunity to thank Ottawa Public Health, Chair Caudry, and yourself for your leadership on this. And I know other municipalities across Ontario are coming up with similar requests to the ministry, and the minister has indicated they're open to them. This evolving crisis, we initially spent a lot of time talking about harm reduction, and we still do, but it's become very clear that it's a much larger endeavor, and there's lots of other components to the crisis: addictions, mental health, and concurrent conditions and challenges from some of our folks, both street affected and not. are becoming more and more part of that conversation. So I certainly welcome the broader attack on this issue and the broader approach that we're taking. And again, once again, thanks to you and Chair Cadre and Ottawa Public Health for your work on this file.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Cadre, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And once again, let me add my thanks to you, Mr. Mayor, for looking at this issue and putting this motion forward this morning. And as Councillor McKenney mentioned about the peer support, that was indeed discussed at the last board meeting, and I'm happy to see that the support is included in this motion for that item going forward. As you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, the opioid issue has become, it's become a big issue in the city. And based on those kind of scenarios, I think every action that we can take as a council and as yourself as a mayor is important in that relationship. The other thing is that I'm happy to see the Lynn Group investing some funding into this issue also, and helping the Ottawa Public Health along with other partners in the community to fight this issue and to work with this issue going forward. So again, Mr. Mayor, I want to thank the Ottawa Public Health Management in terms of the acting medical officer health, yourself, and to the rest of the council, if they do approve this motion, that this is a step in the right direction. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Councillor Fleury, if you'd like to read out your amendment, I consider it a friendly amendment.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Further resolve that we build on the efforts of OCH to establish new opportunities for residents with mental health and addictions to connect with the leadership of the LIN on those initiatives.
Great. So on the motion, carried. Thank you. The next motion, we actually have a replacement motion. It's Councillor Cloutier, seconded by Councillor Fleury. Councillor Cloutier, if you'd like to introduce the motion, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Thank you very much. So, yes, as you say, Mr. Mayor, this is a substitute motion from the notice that was given 2 weeks ago. So I will read it. I think it gives the context. And it is on the screen. Whereas the planning rationale provided by the Salvation Army dated June 13th, 2017 in support of the applications for an official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and the site plan approval in respect of the Montreal Road site stated that there would be 140 shelter beds. And whereas during the Planning Committee consideration of November 17th, 2017 of the official plan and the zoning bylaw amendment applications, the Executive Director of the Salvation Army and the planner retained by the Salvation Army both stated that there would be 140 shelter beds in the proposed 350-bed facility. Attendu que lors de l'examen des critères.
Whereas that during the review of the criteria related to Section 145 of the Planning Act, the planner that was hired by the Salvation Army said that the number of beds would be limited to 140, and since they are looking to obtain confirmation in writing of the number of shelter beds, that would be limited to 140.
Clerk and the solicitor be directed to confirm with the Governing Council of the Salvation Army in Canada that the Salvation Army commits to providing no more than 140 permanent shelter beds at the site of their proposed development at 325, 327, 333 Montreal Road and 334 Montfort and 273 Sainte-Anne Avenue. And be it further resolved that the City Clerk and the solicitor be directed to request a written response from the Salvation Army within 30 days of the date of this resolution's passage. So, Mr. Mayor, just to summarize, in November, Councillor Eglai and I proposed a motion that was unanimously carried, limiting the area for the shelter beds to 801 square meters, down from 900. And this was, in fact, in the context of representations by the Salvation Army in their planning rationale and in their representations to this council that this is what was needed for their plan of 140 permanent beds. My expectation is that the site plan going forward, that the Salvation Army respect their commitment to the residents of the City of Ottawa and the residents of Vanier. And this motion is simply to confirm or to affirm the basis on which council voted for that applications. And so on that basis, I'd ask my colleagues to support this.
Great. I thank you and Councillor Fleury for working on this. Mr. Mark, with respect to the applicant's position on this, have they communicated with us?
Mr. Mayor, I have had the chance to exchange correspondence with the solicitor for the Salvation Army. They've indicated that they can agree to the cap of 140 shelter beds in principle. They did note that there may be emergency situations where they go beyond the 140, but they are otherwise content with the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Thank you. Councillor Brockington, please.
No, I was just going to ask what happened if we received a reply that differed from what was being asked, but Mr. Mark has addressed that.
Okay. Thank you. Est-ce qu'il y a des autres commentaires sur ce sujet?
Any other comments?
Oh, Councillor Harder.
Clarification. So the notion of reaching out to them and asking them, does what we have from Mr. Mark satisfy their agreement? And I mean, is there any reason for you to, is there a reason, I guess, for us to vote on this? Is there a reason for us to send something else to them when we already have the information from the lawyer?
Well, I think because we've asked for it to be in writing, this is the final motion. We'll probably get the same letter back, which will state the same thing, but that's fine. That won't take too much time.
And that letter be shared with all of us?
Yes. Yeah, we can send that around. Okay. On the report, the motion rather? Carried. Thank you. Merci. Motions requiring suspension of the rules of procedure. Councillor Brockington has a motion seconded by Councillor Deans to suspend the rules. There's a time issue that has to be dealt with on suspension of the rules. Carried. On the motion, Councillor Brockington, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just very briefly for Council, a little bit of history and context. So Council back in September of 2016 approved a partnership between the city and the Ottawa Mountain Bike Association for a pump track and skills course area on Carlington Hill. This was a 2-year pilot project that would be undertaken by this volunteer association. It was to be assessed by the city and community by the end of Q4 2018. However, because they are a volunteer association, they've been somewhat delayed in getting going. They are organized this year, but all this to say we won't have 2 years worth of use to properly assess them. So this motion just asks for an extension. Once it's expected, they will be open this year, and so the city will be able to properly assess them after those 2 years. Obviously, it won't be Q4 of 2018. So as the therefore clause states at the end, we're looking to go no later than 2021, just in case there are further delays, but we had to come back to council to get this extension.
Okay. On the motion as presented by Councillor Brockington. Carried. Notices of motion for consideration at subsequent meeting. Councillor Deans, please, seconded by Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whereas in 1910, women delegates from around the world met in Copenhagen to propose that Women's Day become an international event to promote equal rights for women, and whereas the first International Women's Day was held in 1911, and whereas in 1977, the United Nations officially called for all countries to mark a day for the recognition of women's economic, political, and social achievements, and whereas we are witnessing a significant rise in women's activism and a deepening resolve to reject gender discrimination in all its forms, and whereas every year thousands of events are held around the world to inspire, celebrate, and honor women, therefore be it resolved that Ottawa City Council declare March 8, 2018 to be International Women's Day in the City of Ottawa. This is a notice of motion for the next meeting.
Okay, so we will deal with that at the next meeting. Does anyone else have a motion for consideration at a subsequent meeting? Est-ce qu'il y a des autres motions? No. Motion to introduce bylaws, please. Motion portant présentation de règlement, Conseiller Blais, seconded by Councillor Nussbaum.
That the bylaws listed on the agenda under motion to introduce bylaws, 3 readings, be read and passed.
Carried. Confirmation bylaw, please, Councillor Blais.
That the following bylaw be read and passed to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting of February 14, 2018.
Carried. Inquiries, we have 2 written inquiries. Councillor Nussbaum. Councillor McKenney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Nussbaum, Councillor Leeper, and myself have an inquiry that was sent to clerks yesterday, so ahead of the memo then that was subsequently sent out. So good news that we're going to be receiving updates, monthly updates at FEDCO. So you know, on the LRT, on the the overview of the project agreement, and perhaps some of this can be responded to by March 6th. But these are essentially some of the questions that I'm sure many of us, but I know we've been asked by our constituents. So just want to make sure that we're getting it on record in terms of what we would like to see responded to. So the inquiry, I'll read it out. It's several questions. What are the direct costs, including the specific costs associated with the continued operation of detours, operation of the LRT office, continued operation of buses slated to be removed from service, and others to the city as a result of the delay in the revenue service availability date? What is the anticipated amount of lost OC Transpo fare box revenue resulting from the delay in the revenue service availability date? In staff's response to this question, please provide detailed methodologies, assumptions, and calculations. Under precisely what circumstances will a $1 million penalty be applied to any future delay in the revenue service availability date? Which provisions of the project agreement facilitate full recovery of the city's costs and lost revenue as a result of the delay in revenue service availability beyond May 24th, 2018? What are the city's obligations to provide milestone payments and when as a result of the delay in the revenue service availability date? What would be the approval process by which the city would provide any payments to RTG earlier than what is required to be paid according to the project agreement? Did the Rideau Street sinkhole constitute a delay event under the project agreement? As a result of the sinkhole, what actions were required to be undertaken by RTG to resume work on the Confederation line? And what were the timelines associated with those? Is the sinkhole entirely responsible for the full delay, or are there other factors? On November 24th, RTG, and I quote, advised that they would achieve the revenue service availability date, but on December 7th, again, quote, RTG provided a recent schedule that indicates the revenue service availability date will likely be extended. From November 24th to the receipt of the new schedule on December 7th, what new factors or considerations became known that led to a revision in expected RSA date? What penalties, recovery mechanisms, and payment adjustments are being proposed for Phase 2 LRT, leveraging the lessons learned from Phase 1 rollout? Will that contract contain the same mechanism as in the current contract as Section 26.7 to allow the project to notify the city of a delay and thus avoid a monetary penalty? It's already sent in.
Thank you. So as you pointed out, a lot of those issues will come up at FEDCO meeting in March.
Yeah, well.
Second inquiry we have is from Councillor Fleury with respect to zoning of bars and restaurants.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, can staff please provide the zoning difference, including attributable features between restaurants and bars, and provide an example for each? In a zone where bars are not permitted but restaurants are permitted, how is zoning compliance being monitored and enforced to ensure compliance with our zoning regulations?
Great, thank you. Adjournment, Councillor Blais, please. Seconded by Councillor Nussbaum.
That the proceedings of City Council meeting February 14, 2018 be adjourned.
On the motion, carried. Adopté. Merci. Meeting adjourned. And thank you, Councillor Cloutier, for the Valentine's candy.